There we go. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Night 5 of the Master Beef webinar series here in 2024. Again, my name is Mallory. I'm super excited to have everyone joining us again tonight. As people start to flood in, just a few housekeeping rules that we've gone over just in the past as well. If you have any questions, be sure to put those in the chat box or the Q&A box. And we'll get those answered probably at the end of the presentation, or if Bruno or Dr. Pedreira sees them throughout the presentation, he can answer them as well. Attendance is being recorded, so no one has to worry about that. I take care of that on my end. And everyone that logs in tonight will have attendance for their certification, so no need to worry there. Before we get started, we're going to do something a little bit different tonight. And so in just a moment, you'll see a survey that pops up on your screen. Dr. Pedreira would just like to record this information just to get an idea of some different things that we can cover in the future for his extension program. So if you don't see this survey, please let me know in the chat box or the Q&A box. It just launched, and so if you'll walk through those questions, answer them for us, and no information, like personal information, is being recorded. This is all anonymous. So if you can fill out that survey to the best of your ability, we'd certainly appreciate it. I'll give everyone a couple of minutes to read through those questions, and once those few minutes are up, I'll let Dr. Pedreira get started. I already see a bunch of answers. Thanks for your participation. All these answers are flooding in. It's so fun to watch them come in.
I've been seeing here. Yeah, that's great.
I was curious to see if you could see it on your end. It's great to watch.
I can. It's here.
Awesome.
So again, yeah, thanks for all of you guys being participating on this. It's really important for us to understand what are you all thinking about this.
All right, I'm going to give about 30 more seconds so everyone can work through those questions. And then once we end this poll, I'll let Dr. Pedreira get started.
Yeah, and don't worry if you all couldn't answer all of them. It does not worth anything for the Master Beefy program.
Right.
It's just out of curiosity here. We really want to understand what you think about those topics here. It'll help us to drive some of our programs from now on and presentations, and it's always very helpful to understand what you guys are thinking.
Yeah. As we wrap up this poll here too, I'll go ahead and introduce Dr. Pedreira if you've not seen him at a field day or presentation within your county. He's our fairly new forage specialist here at the University of Tennessee. I think you just hit your year mark, right?
14 months now, yeah.
Awesome. So a fairly new forage specialist here for us at the University of Tennessee, as well as our director of the Beef and Forage Center. So if you see anything at different field days, or you're at your extension office with utbeef.com or anything beef or forage related, Dr. Pedreira is probably a part of it. So we're super excited to have him on tonight.
Awesome. Thanks, Miller. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here today. I think we need to close the pool, right? So they can see my screen.
Right.
I think you already have it, right?
Yes, I just ended the poll. If you couldn't again get those questions, all of those answered, no worries. It doesn't account to your attendance or anything like that. So you should have those results on your screen, and I'll save those for us.
Awesome. So let's let's get it started. I'm very glad again to be here with you all today and be able to have these answers from the poll. It's always good to have a chance to learn from you all, and that's what we do here. From what we learn here, we will move forward. So tonight we are going to talk about pasture renovation, right? That's the challenge I have for tonight. I've been, as Miller said, to with you guys for a little over a year now, and I would love to have a different weather so we could talk about today, but it seems that we are in a drought again. Today here, at least in the east side of the state, we got some rain. I don't think it was enough to move us towards a more non-drought situation, but it was really good. It's better than nothing, right? Every single drop is better than nothing. So I will try to cover today a few things into the pasture renovation scenario that I think that those are important and that we need to see along the way when we are talking about renovate a pasture. And among them, we'll discuss a little bit about stand evaluation, soil tests, seed quality and rate, depth. And we will close up this presentation discussing a little bit about renovation scenarios. Based on these scenarios, what we can do, right? I think those were the main ideas for tonight. So getting starting from the very beginning here, I think one of the things that is very important when we are talking about pasture renovation is to understand why we're doing this and what is the condition you have in the field right now, right? Why did you end up in a situation that you need to renovate your stand? I think that's the first question you need to have for yourself when you're looking at a pasture and say, yes, I think I need to do something different here. Is it happening because you did something that you shouldn't, you overgrazed, or you have been through two really drought falls, maybe three. You didn't get the fertilizers that you should. You didn't manage that hayfield, that pasture in the best way you could. What are the factors? Why is the reason you think you get into that situation that you need to do something different with your pastures? That's the first thing I want you to think about it. Second is, yes, if you already are, conscious that you need to do something like this, you were aware that, yes, it's time to do something different because I don't have the stand I would like to have there anymore. The first thing will be stand evaluation, right? And this is not a good time of the year to do this. That's time of the year we should be planting, right? If we have some rain, we do not have yet. But stand evaluation is the kind of evaluation that I like to do in April, May, when our cool season plants are really growing, when fescue is growing, if you go to the field and walk through your fields in April, May, if you don't have fescue there at that point, you will never have fescue back, right? Or because I would say never, but if you don't have at that point, you may be in trouble because you should have fescue growing there, orchard grass, or whatever cool season you have during the peak of the springtime. So I want you to walk through, check your fields, and see what exactly you have there. And then I like to divide the fields in a farm in three big categories. The first one is the one that I say, you know what, walking through, looking from the top towards my feet, I can see that 70% of the ground is covered. I have a good feeling walk through that field. I know that I am covering the most of the field. I know what we have there, and I'm happy with what I have. My second category of pasture or hayfield in my list would be the ones that are in between. Those that are from 40 to 70% cover. The ones that I'm walking through and I say, yeah, it was better next year. It had been better in the years before. It was a little bit thicker last year and even more thicker 2 years ago. I'm losing stand for some reason. Some of these fields will start to see some weeds taking over, right? Sometimes in patch, sometimes in the whole pasture, but you can see that you have some. And in the third category, so you have the ones that are looking good, above 70%, the ones that I feel like I may need to do something. And you have the third one, which is the ones that we are below 40%. So if I don't have at least half of my pasture there, if I'm walking through and say, you know what, I have here from a third to a half of my pasture is still here. The rest is not pasturing anymore, it's bare ground or any other plants, as you guys can see here in my slides. Those are the ones that we are going to target as field to be renovated for next year, right? And then sometimes you just need to walk through, and you just sometimes, if you have a chance, if you already have a kid at home that has a drone or a grandkid or your neighbor, if you could fly a drone, it is that thing that helps a lot. I can tell you, you can see this pasture that you have on the picture here. That's one of the pastures that I walked through and said, this pasture is still in a situation that I think we can save it. And in the moment I flew the drone, I brought it back and said, no, I got to renovate these as well because I don't feel like I have that much. So sometimes just looking, from the horizon, you don't have the feeling that we need. You got to look from the top. If you can go and walk through and really look for that feeling that say, yes, I can keep cows here or I cannot keep cows here. Again, below 40%, I'll be thinking for do something different. Based on this, I kind of put together this slide that says, okay, you have the stand assessment, and then you have pastures above 70, they're okay, green light for them. Those 40 to 70 that say, yeah, yellowish here, need to take care of these, and below 40, bam, I need to do something. For the pastures, they are okay. You feel like two-thirds of that pasture is still in good shape. You have good tillers, a lot of tillers, good stand. Those are the ones we are going to work with herbicide to try to reduce the competition. We'll work with fertilizers to try to improve the growth. We will target to include clovers, most likely in February, right? That's when we are planting clovers in Tennessee. And I will keep my eyes on the management. What can I do to help this field that's still in good shape to be in good shape for a long time? What am I doing in terms of rotational grazing or stubble height? How short to the ground I'm cutting my hay? All of these things will help me to keep this field in good health. Good. But if I am in the second category, that's the one that I say, yeah, we need to do something more than everything I already said to you, right? Those fields that are in these in between, halfway, those are the ones we can overseed. And usually the time of the year that we do here is now, right? Mid-September. If you go to the forage seed guide, you see that our recommendation for tau fescue is from August 15th up to October 1st. So sometime in September, exactly where we are right now, is the time we use to overseed those fields that are halfway, looking for trying to increase the amount of plants we have in that field, right? That's when you wanna graze it short, or you wanna mow it down a little bit just to keep those plants you already have close to the ground, and then we can drill in and keep everything better for next year as we are drilling in this fall. The problem right now is we don't have rain, right? So we are too dry to do this. So we may need to hold a little bit, and maybe we will have some rain that will still give us the chance to do it in the next few weeks. In the third category, the ones we don't have 40% or less than 40%, this is the one we really need to work on renovation, right? So the first set of pastures, they are in good shape. We need to keep them well with all of these practices I just talked to you. Those 7 to 40 are the ones that we need to overseed. And the ones that has less than 40, we need to start it over and do everything we need to get it done. And in these cases, when we are talking about starting over, that we are talking about, or even in the ones that we are not in that bad shape, we want to have a soil test. We want to know what's going on there. You want to have the numbers to, instead of just have a guess in terms of your soil fertility, you want to make a guided decision, right? You want to make a decision based on the numbers that you have from the soil test report. You just don't want to go there and throw fertilizer, especially paying the prices we have been paying the last 5 years. But the point here is, why is it so important? Why do I need to think about fertility from the soil standing point? I like to see it from two ways, right? The first way is, I'm just a livestock guy. I don't put up any hay. I'm talking about pastures. And even in pastures, if you think that the nutrient cycling is even better than a hay field, every time you sell a 500-pound steer, you are selling nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, calcium, and magnesium, right? From 12 pounds from a little less than a pound, depending on which nutrient we are talking about. And if you put dollars in the numbers we have today, every time you sell a steer like this, you gotta have $9 to $10 just to replace the NP and K that you have there, plus the other nutrients. What if you sell a pair, a cow-calf? We may need more than the double of this, right? Because the weight we're selling is much higher, and then you may need another $20 for each cow that you sold to be able to bring back the nutrients that you were selling with that cow. So what I want you to think with me on this is, although we have a lot of cycling, although the nutrient removal from pastures, they are lower from what we have in hay fields, we are removing nutrients out of our farm every time we sell an animal. And over the years, we need to find a way to replace it, right? To bring it back to where we are. On the second hand, and on the second way, on the other hand, if we are talking about hay fields, the nutrient removal is much higher. So the way we treat our pastures does not need to be the same that we treat our hay fields. This is the numbers we put together from all here at the University of Tennessee. We have the forage lab, right, under the Beef and Forage Center here. We put together almost 5,000 samples, and we calculate the average. And based on the numbers we have on the forage samples, we back calculate to figure out how much NP and K we had in that sample and how much we would have in a bale or per acre base. And if you look at those numbers, in a big bale, in a 5x4 or a 4x4 heavy that may have 750, 800 pounds, every time you sell a bale like this, you are also selling 14 pounds of nitrogen, 4 pounds of phosphorus, and 17 pounds of potassium. So multiply this for the amount of bales you are producing every year, and you figure out how much you need to bring back. If you multiply the same number from 2.5 tons, which is what we think we're removing every year from a hay field, we gotta bring back 9 units of nitrogen, 24 of phosphorus, and 105 of potassium. So those numbers show you how important it is to bring back the nutrients in a way that we're going to keep everything in good shape for a long time. In a hay field, if you are just removing without replace, pretty soon it's going to be an issue. Weeds will be showing up, and we are not going to have that pasture for so long. And then we'll be talking about pasture renovation again. And that's the most expensive part, right? To replant the pastures, to bring back seeds, to work the ground and make a new pasture. So the more we can treat them well, the more we can bring back the nutrients and manage it well, the more years that pasture is going to last for us. And that's what we want. Well, hope that at this point you already are on the same page with me and say, yeah, Bruno, I can see this. Every time I'm selling a cow, I'm selling nutrients as well. Every time I'm selling a bale of hay, I'm sending nutrients out of my farm. How do I work it back, right? How do I define my fertility program? And that's when we are talking about the soil test, the soil sampling. Especially here in Tennessee, where we have really good hills, right? I worked in Kansas for almost 3 years, and I never used this slide there because everything is flat and tabletop. They don't care about hills because they don't have it. But here in Tennessee, if you have a hilly pasture, you don't want to take soil sample from the top to the border. You want at least to split that thing in two and go, from the side slope to the top and from the side slope to the border. Or if you have a really big slope, you may want to have three soil tests, three soil samples from that field. The ones from the hilltop, from the side slope, and then from the bottom. Because when you get the numbers from the lab, if you put all of them together, what we know is that everything's on the top. As we have rain and leaching and rainfall, everything goes to the bottom, right? So my bottom soil will always be richer than the top soil, than the hilltop soil. If I take soil samples and put all of them together when we got the recommendation back, you most likely will be over applying nutrients on the bottom and under applying them on the hill and on the top. So if you can split those things, we will be able to work in the different recommendations for each side of the big hill you have there. The second point that's important here within this picture is in each of these places that you call a homogeneous area, that you think that you can represent, you decide to put that together within the same soil test, you gotta pull up from 15 to 20 soil cores. Don't go there to take just one or two soil cores and put it in the bucket and send to the lab. We want you to put together 15, 20, mix it then together, take a cup of this and send it back to the lab. It's important to go through the whole field and be able to represent well the whole field. So the number you're going to have is not going to be just a number, but it's going to be a good number. It's going to be something that you can rely on because you did everything right. So the second thing here is depth. That's one of the questions I have been receiving every once in a while is how deep do I need to go, right? And I would say that the standard we use here and all the calculations we do at the University of Tennessee Soil Plant and Pest Center, that's the place we use to send our soil samples in if you are working with University of Tennessee. They will make all the calculations 0 to 6. Most of the labs around us will do the same. What is the problem if you don't take samples 0 to 6? When you're taking samples more 0 to 3, 0 to 4, you are just sampling the top layers. And the top layers, they will be always richer again than the down layers, right? Than the deep layers. So everything that is on the top is better that it's deeper in the soil. And if you just send to us top soil, you may get a number back that misrepresent your pasture. Maybe you have a number that says you don't need anything else here because you were in good shape. And that's not true. That's just because you didn't take samples 0 to 6. You took then 0 to 3 or 0 to 4, and you brought to us just the best of your soil, not the depth we need. So pay attention on this. All of the soil probes, they used to have a dash line on the 0.6. So you got to go all the way to the 6 and be able to pull a good number. And so put them in a clean bucket, all the 15 cores all together, 0 to 6, represent the area, put all together in the same bucket, mix that thing, and then you prepare the box and send to us. As soon as we receive it, we'll work on that sample and you will receive a soil report like this you are seeing your screen right now. Awesome, awesome. With the soil test report, now I feel good and all of our agents in our counties that have been working with you all will feel really good to be able to help you guys on this because now we are not just telling you, go with triple 19. We now are going to tell you how much you really need in each of your pastures. Today, what I want to do is I want to walk with you guys a little bit about these numbers. The first number I will look at when somebody brings me a soil test report is the soil pH. We don't talk too much about pH, and that's the thing we need to discuss a little bit more. Why? Because pH tells me about the chemical environment in the soil. pH tells me about how much lime I need to bring it back, right? Lime is widely available. There was no great price change in the last few years, although fertilizer skyrocketed in the last few years. Lime didn't change that much. Lime will just change the price if we have big changes in diesel or in delivery cost. Other than that, it's a pretty cheap thing when we compare with fertilizer, right? And liming a acidic pasture is a high priority. We gotta do this. And I'll show you why. I love this graph here. I think it tells a lot. Come with me. If you see here, most of the soil tests we have been testing in Tennessee, when we are talking about our pastures, of our hay fields, our pasture ground, we will have soil pH on the low fives. Sometimes in the up fours, but most of the times in the low fives. So if you see those bars, can you see the black bars as well? And they are going to, they are getting thicker as we move to the pH of 6.5, 7. So the thicker are the bars, the greater is the nutrient availability to the plants. I'm not adding nutrients to the ground. I'm just changing the soil pH. And by changing the soil pH, we are making the nutrients that are already there more plant available. So why am I going to apply any kind of nitrogen, phosphorus, or potassium before correcting my soil pH and make the ones that are already in the soil more available to the plants? So that's the goal. That's the first goal out of the soil test report, is to try to identify which pH you have in each of your pastures and work to get them for the cool season plants, fescue, orchard, grass, tomato. We want them in the range from 6 to 7. If they're below 6, we will work and do something to improve it. And if you want to keep legumes in the area, if you have a full alfalfa field, a monoculture alfalfa, or if you have mixed with cool season plants and legumes, clovers, for example, you want to try to keep it above 6.5. One of the things that makes that leads to a reduction in clover in the area is the lack of soil pH, as well, correct soil pH as well. The lower we go in the soil pH, the hardest to the clovers to stay. So we don't want to do this. We want to bring it back and try to keep our clovers there. If you go to the very last part of your soil test report, and obviously I'm using here the UT example, but all of the soil test report I've been seeing, they will report in the very end a recommendation to you all, right? You will find how much you need in nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and lime. So as we are talking about soil pH, lime is the thing I'm looking for. What I want you to pay attention is, and the details that they matter, right? If you look there, you see that it says that the lime is recommended in a 65% RNV basis. What does it mean? It means that on average, the lime we buy on the state of Tennessee has 65% RNV, which is the relative neutralizing value. So it's more like when you buy urea and you know that you have 46% nitrogen in that thing. That's exactly the same here. You are buying a lime that has 65% power to change your soil pH. And every time we make a recommendation here, we make using this number because that's the average. But you may be buying a 50% lime or a 80% RNV lime. So every time you buy lime, you gotta ask. The copy, they have it. They used to have there. And if you ask, they will show you, because everything in the commercialization of lime, it requires the documentation. It's gonna be there. At the same time, the same way when we sell potash, urea, DAP, you gotta know how much you have there. And knowing that, you can correct this. Okay. If you're buying a 65% RNV, that's fine. It's there. Go forward. But if you're buying a lime that has no 65%, we need to find out how much is this and correct it. And sometimes it's higher. For example, in this example I brought to you here, you may be buying a lime that's 80% RNV. So instead of needing 2 tons per acre, what you need is 1.6, right? Because you are buying a lime that's more concentrated at this point. On the other hand, if you buy a lime that has 50% RNV only, you may need 2.6 tons per acre instead of 2. And I'm telling this because I've been talking with people that has been telling me, Bruno, you know what? I already applied lime 2 or 3 times in the last few years, and I never saw pH changing as you guys used to show us. And that's one of the points I have been highlighting. You may have been buying a low quality lime that has no 65% power to change your soil pH. And by applying that amount that is coming out of your recommendation, you are not going to change soil pH as much, right? Because we are lacking in some power here in the lime. So pay attention on this. Just try to figure out. There is no trick on this. I'm not saying that we have good lime, bad lime. It matters a lot. It has a lot to do with the way the lime was extracted and processed to get to you. I know, for example, when I was working in Kansas, we used to buy sometime from Missouri. Missouri has a lime that has like 92% RNB. So we need to correct it because we didn't need that much that we were buying. So every place, every mine is going to be with a different number. And we just need to know to make sure that we are doing the right thing. Here on the line, the second thing I want to share with you is we have been seeing a lot of this marketing towards liquid lime or liquid calcium. And it is on Facebook, it is on Instagram, it is everywhere. And they claim that the product is cheaper than lime and raise pH fast. Well, our folks here in Kentucky at the University of Kentucky, they put together a study a few years ago, and they just got the results early this year. And they work with 16 different farmers in 16 different locations in Kentucky, just up north of us. And they put together 4 treatments that you can see in your screen right now, right? The red one is the control, where we did not apply any lime. The gray one is the liquid lime. The blue one is the pellet lime, and the green is the egg lime, the one we are recommending, right? Pellet lime and egg lime are the ones you will find as eggy lime. The pellets is very expensive, and that's the tricky part of this, but the egg lime is the one that will cost you 20, 25, 30 bucks, depending on where you are at. So they went to those 16 farms and they apply all 4 side by side to try to ID what was going on and how much we can change soil pH over time. And actually, you can see here, soil pH at initial condition was exactly the same. When they start the study, everybody was about 5.7, 5.8, right? You can see the letters A. It says that everybody is pretty much the same. They came back 3 months later and evaluate the impact of each treatment. And they took soil samples again in each of the reps they have in the 16 sites they had this in Kentucky. And you see, control and liquid lime didn't change anything. They still with this 5.7 that they used to have. Although the pellet lime and the egg lime were already above 6. That's what you want, right? 3 months later, you want to come back and you want your pH above 6. That's the target here. They came back a year later, said, well, you know what? What's going on? Still a year later, we still have some changes in the soil pH. Yes, we did have it. And you see here, but control and liquid calcium is still there, 5.7, 5.6, 5.7, which was since the very beginning. And pellet lime and egg lime now are more close to 6.5. So it has a few messages. Well, we can take a few messages here from this slide. The first one is if you really want to change soil pH, you got to use pellet lime and egg lime. The second one is if you want to really change soil pH because you are renovating your pasture, you don't want to do it a month before you plant. You don't want to do it a week before you plant, right? I will come back here. You can see those are the numbers with 3 months. We are reaching the 6 units of the number 6 in terms of soil pH. A year late, we were still increasing soil pH close to 6.5. So if I tell you the whole change in soil pH along this 12-month following application, you can see here we change around 0.7, 0.8 points in the pellet and the egg lime, but we didn't change anything in the control and in the liquid calcium. So if you are planning in renovate your pasture and you know that soil pH is an issue that you need to work with, you don't want to take your soil sample now and plant next week and apply lime with this the same day. You may want to hold a little bit to work on the line, give the soil the time that we need to change soil pH. Then you spend the money with all of the rest to make sure that we are going to establish a new pasture and everything is going to make sense to you after this. Great. So when we went through line, right? The first thing in our soil test report, I share with you guys how much it's important to raise it at a point that the nutrients will be more plant available, even the ones that are already in the soil. If I'm going to apply new ones, I'm going to apply to a soil that already corrected the pH, so the nutrients will still be available to the plants. We already learned that there is no way that I can get soil pH changes quick and easy. It needs to be with egg, lime, and liquid products will not bring the raise we need. That's what we have from those 16 sites studied in Kentucky. My second point here in terms of soil test report will be P&K. If I already took care of pH, now I'm going to take care of P&K. And you can see here in the soil test report, we always have those small letters after the numbers. You can see 5L, 60L. It means that those numbers are low. Low means that they are rating low, right? They are lower than what I need to get my plants up to speed. Which numbers do I want to have in mind, Bruno? I want to have in mind that if my phosphorus is below 30 and if my potassium is below 160, I need to do something. I need to help these plants to grow better and faster. If I don't do this, I'm giving room for weeds. I'm giving away potential of growth, right? My growth potential will be reduced if I don't have those numbers into my soil test report. I'm not telling you that you're going to apply every year in all of your pastures. I'm not going to tell you that you're going to spend all the money you have in fertilizers. What I'm telling you is those are targets that we need to keep in mind. What I want you to have in mind is I know it is expensive. It's hard to pay for. And for that reason, we are always looking to define the right rates of P&K based on the likelihood of yield and economic response. This study here, I really like. Those guys put it together, and after making a lot of calculations, what they said is that if you have numbers in your soil test level here in your second table here that says that you have low numbers or very low numbers, it shows you a probability of profitable response from 60 to 90%. So you don't want to apply P&K in places you already have P&K in the soil, even if they are in the medium or close to the optimum, right? Oh, Bruno, I may still have some to grow. Yeah, you may still have some to grow if you improve a little bit, but the pastures that are in very low condition, low in terms of soil P&K, those are the ones that are going to respond the most, and those are the ones you're going to have a better chance to get a profitable response. So keep this in mind, because I know we all don't have budget to apply fertilizer in all pastures every year. We got every year to select the ones we are going to have the chance to pay for the bills that are coming. Great. With this, I will wrap up here my soil conversation. And I need to have this because if we are talking about pasture renovation, if you are talking about any kind of forage production, there is no way we can be a grass producer without taking care of the soil, right? That's the base of the system. That's what we have. That's the place we are growing the grass. So we need to know more about the soil to be able to grow better our forage. Again, in the very last page, you'll find the recommendations, how much you need to apply in terms of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, lime, everything comes there. And the more information you give when you're submitting your soil sample, the more you're going to get back, right? If you don't tell us if it's a pasture or if it's a soybean field or a cotton field, we are not going to send you back any recommendation. But if you tell me that's a cool season grass pasture that you are willing to renovate, or that is a already established that you just need pasture maintenance, those recommendations will come exactly as you were seeing right now. And also with those recommendations in the very below that says when you should apply, why you should apply, and it helps you to make guided decisions. Awesome. With that, I wrap up my soil part of the conversation here. And I want to move to the planting part of this conversation here. Assuming that you already did everything we need, you took soil samples in the spring, you already spread your lime, you were ready for planting right now, and hypothetically, we will have rain in Tennessee tomorrow all over, all across the state. Oh gosh, I wish it was, I was able to define something like this. Assuming that in the perfect world, fall time is the time we are going to plant, right? I want you guys to be aware of this publication. It's a very old publication that we have at University of Tennessee that we have been updating it. This is the 2024 version we just put out. If you Google forage and field crop seeding guide for Tennessee, you will find it. Mallory may be able to help us. You put it on the chat here. I don't know if you guys can see the chat, and you can go from there. In that publication, you will find everything you need in terms of seeding rates, seeding depth, planting dates, and most of the species we work in Tennessee will be there. If you see that we don't have something that you need, you identify something that we are lacking, let us know. We'll try to include it in the next version, but the idea is to have it there. And for all of these grasses I have here on the screen, you have the seeding rates you are seeing right now, right? So based on this, we can make good decisions as well. And here I have a point that I want to bring it up, because when we say seeding rates, there is always this PLS with it, and PLS means pure live seed. What I'm telling here is if you're going to plant a tall fescue, you gotta have 15 pounds of pure live seeds per acre in order to have a good establishment and do not fight that much with weeds. Bruno, why it's important? Because we need to consider all of this. And the pure live seeds come from the understand we have there and how much seed can germinate, how much pure seeds we have there, how much of the other seed crop seeds we have in that bag. Do we have weed seeds there? Do we have any other inert materials like a percentage of sticks, stems, broken seeds, sands, things like this? And also, we still have some seeds that they are viable, but they will not germinate immediately. So all of these things will be within the bag when we buy a bag of seed. Sometimes we have more than we can, than we expected. Sometimes they are pretty clean, very high pure live seeds percentage in that bag. And that's part of the conversation I want to have with you all today. I brought here two labels just to show you how much difference it can make, right? This first label here is a Kentucky 31 that has 98% pure seed and 85% germination. If we put it together, you see that 98 and 85%, if I'm targeted to plant 15 pounds per acre, which is the recommendation we have, we just need 18 pounds of the seeds. That's such a bag that we are buying per acre to do everything right. And at this point, what you're thinking is, Bruno, what are we going with this conversation? 3 pounds more, it's not going to make any difference. The error is bigger than this. So, okay, if you have 98% germination and 85% germination, 98% pure seeds, that may be right. You may not be that concerned. However, I'll show you a second label. This is Kentucky 31 as well. But if you check here, we have 49% seeds, 50% inert material, which is a coated seed. And then we have the same 89% germination. So if you have, we have here much more than the seeds, right? Because the seeds were coated. Oh, Bruno, but I heard that coated seeds are great. They are great. I'm not telling you that coated seeds are not good and you cannot use them. They are good. They are helpful for a bunch of, for a few things that we can discuss later on if you guys want. But when I divide my 15 pounds per acre, which is the recommendation in pure live seeds base, and I divide this by 0.85, which is the germination, and 0.49, which is the amount of seeds I have in that bag, from that bag, I need 35 pounds per acre, not 15, not 18. because I'm buying half of that bag is not seed. And I want you to pay attention on this because it's going to help you to define how much you pay for a bag of seed. So just don't go there and buy a bag of seed. Go there and buy pure live seeds. Make the calculation of how much you need per acre basis, considering your germination and the purity you have in each seed, in each bag of seed. So these are the points here when we are talking about buying a bag of seed. The other point when we are talking about seeding rates is, as I mentioned, we always have them in a range. I will never talk to you guys and say, yeah, plant 15 pounds per acre. The recommendation on the books, on all the references we have, they're always in a range. And here I just talked to you and said from 15 to 20. I use 15 as an example, but you need to make that decision. Are you going in the low with the low end? Are you going with the high end? If we use that first seed bag that I told you that we are going to need 18 pounds, that's the number you see here in the third column, right? If you were targeting 15 pounds. But if you're targeting 20 pounds per acre, this number is going to go up and go to 24. So really buying the seeds from the first lot that we just discussed here, you need something from 18 to 24. And why is it good? Is it good because it gives me a range to calibrate my drill? And that's another point. You just don't go there and rent a drill from the co-op or from or borrow it from an RCS or from anybody in your county without calibrating and make sure how much pounds you were putting down. We need to know that. You gotta retest it at least when it gets to your farm, because just by moving a drill from a place to another, the calibration is not the same anymore. We need to make sure that you are doing the right thing. Everything can mess up just by transporting. And again, the range is here to help you to calibrate the drill, and you are going to define if you are in the lower end or in the high end of that calibration based on what? Based on the weather, if the probability of having rain is higher or lower, if you had a really nice seed bed or not, if you have a field that has really high weed pressure or really low weed pressure, if your soil fertility is all fine, or if you did not put the lime you should put like a year ago, you just put it 30 days ago, and you know that soil pH is not correct yet. So all of these things together may tell you, yeah, I better go more towards 24 and make sure that, I know that some of the plants will not make anyway. If I am already in trouble, I know that the weather is not good. I know that I didn't do what I'm supposed to do in terms of soil fertility. My seed bed is not that good, and I'm going with 18, 15 pounds. Most likely, I will not have a really good pasture in the next spring. Okay. So that's the reason we bring the range. That's the reason we want you to calibrate the drill in a way that you bumping up a little bit your seeding rate. You will make sure that you're going to establish a good pasture in the spring. You have a good pasture in the spring. You establish in the fall to have good pastures in the spring. Moving a little bit from the seed quality and the importance of understanding the seed germination and the seed purity to define the range you're going to use in the drill. When we go to drilling, there is another thing that we need to keep the eyes on, which is the seed depth. And here I brought to you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seeds. Can you see all of the 6 there? You may have been seeing just 5 and you think that the 6 to 1 is just some dot in your screen. It's not. Here we have teff grass, tall fescue, orchard grass, ryegrass, sorghum, and corn from the left to the right in your screen. Why did I bring this kind of picture to you? Because I want you to think about this. You cannot plant teff and in the same depth, you plant fescue, orchard grass, and ryegrass, right? And you also can change if you're planting sorghum and change again if you're planting corn. It's pretty easy to see this when you have those different in size. And the message here is the bigger is the seed, the deeper you can go, because this seed will have energy enough to make through the soil and pop up outside and be able to give you the plant we need. So if we bury a teff seed or a tall fascio seed in the same depth that we plant corn, for example, will those seeds have energy enough to make it through 2 inches, 2.5 inches, and pop up out of the ground? Most likely not, right? So that's another thing when you have the drill, when you're working on pasture renovation, we need to pay attention on the seed depth. We don't have seeds like you can see here in the screen. I'm showing here corn plants. Can you see the amount of energy that plants spend before getting to the green side of it? And the green tissue is the one that's going to make it photosynthesis, is going to bring energy back to the plant to replace the energy, to grow the roots, to bring back to new leaves, right? If I burn all the energy I have within the seed that gives me the ability to put my leaves out, how can I make my journey? So don't bury the seeds. Again, go check the forage and seed guide. Everything is there for most of our cool season plants. We are talking about 1/4 to 1/2 inch. All is there on the tables, and you need to check when we put the seeds on the ground to make sure that everything is going fine. Here we have a kind of table that summarizes a little bit of what we have on the seed guide there. And you can see the bigger is the seed, the deeper I can place them on the ground, and everything's going to be fine. But I cannot do a deep planting with really small seeds. Great, guys. With that, we kind of went through soil test. We identify the stand assessment, right? We identify what is the problem in each of your pastures, which the ones we want to work with, if it has less than 40% of plants, if it has from 40 to 70, if it has above 70, you need to take soil samples. We need to understand that pH is the first thing I'm going to work with. And then P&K, looking for the high probability of, pay my bills. And then we go through the seed process, which is planting, calibrating a drill, which is paying attention on which seed I'm buying. Is it coated or not? Do I need just 18 pounds, 24 pounds, or 30 plus pounds because of the materials we have there? And then we need to put the seeds in the right place in the ground and pray for rain, right? That's what we do in agriculture. We're always looking to the sky to see what's coming next. So based on this, I want to wrap up this presentation tonight with a few scenarios. The first scenario that we have been discussing here is the one that we have more than 70%. So this is the one that we are going to work with lime, P&K. Lime, whenever you understand that you need, whenever the soil test report pops up there and says pH is below 6. P&K we used to apply it in the fall, and the main reason we do it is because all the row crop guys, they already bought and apply all the P&K they need. So prices tend to be a little bit lower. I'm not telling that they're cheaper, but they tend to be a little bit less expensive in the fall. So we can apply P&K there, and it's going to hold in the soil, so we can use in the next spring. Nitrogen, we always apply it greening up. So when the plants are coming back, sometime February, depending on the year, it's a little bit cooler. You may need to hold a little bit, but greening up is when we are talking about applying nitrogen. You need to keep the eyes on weeds, right? If you want to kill cool season weeds, we are talking and apply somewhere from December to March. I don't want to kill cool season weeds in June, July. They're flowering, but they're gone. They're already done whatever they need to be done there. Warm season weeds, we will be keeping the eyes on them after the first cut or the first grazing. Somewhere June, July, that's when most of the warm season weeds will show up. So keep the eyes on them on those different times of the year. I will try to add clovers in the pastures as much as you can, in the more pastures you can, right? The main recommendation on clovers are 2 pounds of white and 4 pounds of red clovers. So we used to do it around the second week of February. So if you have a good stand, That will be my goal, is to bring 2 or 4 pounds, 2 plus 4 pounds of white and red clovers. We know at this point, based on data, is that if you can get around the 30% of clovers in your stand, those clovers will be feeding the fascia with something around 50 to 60 units of nitrogen every year through biological nitrogen fixation. So clovers will help us on the rooming because the animals will like it. Your hay will be with higher quality, and your grazing will be better because you have clovers in the pasture. But at the same point, clovers are also supplying nitrogen to the fascia around them. And management, right? I'm not going to stand tonight talking about grazing management, rotational grazing, strip grazing, nothing like this. But if you have a good stand, you don't want to overgraze, and you don't want to continuously stocking it all year long. If you were able to divide your big pasture in 2 and 3 and 4, 2 is better than 1, 3 is better than 2, 4 is better than 3, right? It does not need to be square. It does not need to be rounded. It does not need to be beautiful. It just needs to be in a way that works for you. That's the main target here when I'm talking about management. If we are getting into the second category, which is the one we have from 40 to 7, that we need to do something, that we need to push them a little bit, basically the same thing. Keep the eyes on the weeds to control them, especially the warm season weeds, because as we go through the summer, and you already have a thinner stand, the warm season ones will show up and they will try to take over everything. And as we are approaching September, fall time, right? That's the time you can mow or graze it down, because you are going to drill the seeds in, and you do not want to drill them in a heavy pasture, even if it's with weeds or if it's with wherever you have there, but pasture, right? Because if it was a good stand, we will not be drilling in. If we're drilling in, is because we have something else. So control weeds. Clovers in February would be helpful as well. After the first cut, help these pastures to come back, keep work on the weeds. And the same thing for the fertilizer. Soil test, if we need lime, work on them, P&K in the fall, nitrogen and the greening up. Everything to bring back your pasture that's more like 50 something percent, bring it back to 80, 85, 90% to be able to use it for a few more years again. And then we go into the very last category, wrapping up our discussion here to go into the questions. We will have the place that you want to go with renovation. You have less than 4%. You already said, nah, I'm done with this. I need to do something different. One option you have is, especially if you decide to not do anything this fall because it's too dry, if you decide to work in the next fall and the weeds are just getting worse and the pasture is just getting bad, worse than it was. You may want to work with summer animals like crabgrass or sorghum Sudan. So you kind of suppress a little bit the weeds because you have something competing there that's not going to compete your fascia later on, right? That's one thing that you don't want to do. You don't want to plant anything now that's going to compete with your fascia next year. I had this conversation this week. Somebody called me and said that he already realized that he was late to renovate. He wants to renovate next fall, and he wants to plant ryegrass, for example, this fall. And my point was, ryegrass may be an option to the fall now to help you wait for the next year. But annual ryegrass may bring you so many seeds to the ground that when you plant fescue in the next fall, the competition will be very high. So I will try to avoid the ryegrass in fields or pastures that you want to bring back fescue next year. I'll try to work with something like wheat now, or even oats, spring wheats now, or oats in the spring, February time frame. So you can have something to graze, you can have something to make hay out of it, but you don't bring ryegrass that will be maybe too much to compete with fescue in the next fall when we're renovating these pastures. When you are ready for this, what we used to do is, as we go into September, we will burn it down, right? Glyphosate, Roundup all over. Wait for 10 to 14 days at least. Let the herbicide work through the plant to kill everything, to make sure that you are killing those roots and all of the plants that are there. And then you drill in. You want to give the fertilizer, the herbicide, those few days to work before bringing those new seedlings, and also give some time to these plants kind of reduce the biomass as well as we are drying with as they are drying with the herbicide applications, they will be reducing a lot the biomass. And then keep the eyes on the weeds. That's what we need to do. And especially if you were thinking about bringing clovers later on, because every time we do this, we used to plant in the fall and then we bring clovers in the spring, right? You don't want to plant your clovers in the spring knowing that you have a high pressure of weeds that you need to kill. So you may don't want to have clovers in the first year because you want to keep your field clean and make sure that your fescue established well and you were able to clean it up. And then in the second spring after planting, you will bring your clovers in because it's going to help you to provide nitrogen to the fescue, as we already mentioned here. And all of this was drilling in, right? Without any kind of tillage. If you decide that you need to till, I'm not against this. I just think that in Tennessee is really hard because of the hills we have here. The higher is the slope, the higher is the chance that you're going to have all of your soil going out to your neighborhood or to your watershed. And we don't want to do this. But if you decide to do this, if you have a flat area that you want to do this, you can do this. You need to work the ground, take care of the seed bed, take care with erosion. You don't want to work the ground and get 2 inches of rain overnight, right? We don't want to having that much of soil losses. Fertilizer based on the soil test, drill seeds in, weed control, and please use a seed soil, use a cultipacker to make sure that you have seed soil contact, to make sure that you are trying to bring that soil back and do not let it loose there. Again, it's going to reduce a little bit the soil losses if we have any big issue, and you are going to have something like this where the plants may be showing up really quick, and we are going to be able to establish a new pasture as well. Again, in Tennessee, I'm always concerned about tillage renovation. I think that's always a risk we can do, but it's always a risk. I would avoid as much as I can. Great. Final message, final slide here. Hope you guys are not that tired yet. Pasture renovation is always a challenge. Weather is always a main factor, right? I think most of the calls I got in the last 2 or 3 weeks were like, what can we do if I don't have any rain, if it's still too dry, I didn't get a single drop here since whatever. So it's a challenge. We need to, some years we just cannot do this, right? And we need to wait a little bit and maybe work next year. But whenever you decide to do this, I want you to consider all of these topics we just discussed tonight. Soil test, the importance of lime, P&K on the right time, the right amount, and the pastures we need. Check the seed quality, seeding rate, seed depth, seeding planting, and planting dates. One of the things I like here is I can tell you from the problems from the situations I already went through, I add that thing here, save a Ziploc bag of seeds. It's not uncommon that you will have a failure planting, a failure renovation, and then the first thing you have in mind is, well, that seed I bought was not good. We may have several factors that may end up in a failure pasture, but seeds sometimes may be the issue, right? But if you plant all of them and you didn't save any, how can you prove this? And then is your word against to the rep, and you guys call me and want me to intervene on this and say, Bruno, what do you think about it? Like, I cannot think about anything because we don't have the seeds anymore. But if you have saved a bag of seeds and or keep them in a environmental control place with inside your house where the temperatures does not go too high or too low, if you can keep in the fridge, is it even better? That's the place we use to store seeds here at the university. So after you have your pasture well established, you can trash it. But if it didn't show up, you still have a Ziploc bag that you can send to ask for purity, germination, viability, and make sure that you have the right seeds with the right numbers there. Again, weed control and management to ensure stand life. Most of these that we are talking here, and I start this conversation today, with the why. I think that's the most important part of this discussion is to think about the why. Why I ended up with a pasture that I want to renovate. What did I do with pasture A that I didn't do with pasture B, and A is gone and B is not, or vice versa? Why do you have pasture that has been there for 20, 25 years, and why do you have pasture that on the fourth or the fifth or the eighth year you gotta get it done again? Again, that's one of the most expensive things we can have in the pasture systems is to try to establish a new pasture. And all of these plants that we are talking here tonight, well, most of them are perennial plants, and they should last for a few years, right? So we don't want to be on these every year trying to get back to a new pasture. With that, I will leave here my contacts. The utbeef.com is a great resource. I would love to encourage you guys to go there. If you scan this QR code, you go straight to our website. If you are not familiar with, the University of Tennessee Beef and Forage Center was created 12 years ago. And since then, we have been created this utbeef.com with a great platform where you find all of this information we're talking here, the seed guide is there, the weed control manual is there, a bunch of resources. We also have now a newsletter that goes out every month around the 15th of the month. We have a podcast that we have been discussing topics that we think it is important to Tennessee producers. So the idea of the Beef and Forage Center is to be here to serve you guys as much and better as we can. So if you're not doing a good job on this, please let us know. The goal here is to do our best. With that, Mallory, I will give you the word back.
Great. We have some questions in the Q&A box in the chat box, which I'm super excited to see. So I can read those off to you if you prefer, and we can get those answered for everybody.
I am trying to stop to share my screen. And yeah, I just found here the Q&A boxes.
Okay. So I'll start from the beginning if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay. West Tennessee area. I'm very interested in teff grass as a replacement for Bermuda grass. Would you speak on if this is a viable alternative? Would you also speak to the challenges of establishing teff grass?
Yes, that's a great question, Robert. Yes, it is an option. The biggest challenge with teff is the planting, right? You saw the seeds there. It's a really tiny seed. You gotta have a equipment that does it, or you may want to mix it with a phosphorus-based fertilizer and apply and spread it and just could pack it. But getting it established is the main issue, the main challenge on this. It is a great forage, and I can tell you, horse owners love it. So the ones I know that they are producing, they can barely make them, and they are selling all they can produce.
Okay. And next, thought I would pose the first question or dilemma. I'm not getting rain around 2 inches for the month and none forecasted for the next 10 days. However, but I need to overseed. The UT guide says August 15th through August 1st for fescue. What should I do?
Lance, that's a fair question, right? That I think that's the one I received the most in the last few days. And it's a game of do not do and take the risk and do not get and do not take the risk and then get the rain and it's late, right? I think here it's gonna be a lot with you and your guts in the way that say I'll do this and see what's going on, because if we don't get rain, there is not much more we can do, right? And next year was like this. I started in Tennessee last July, and everybody was telling me, "Oh, the fall here is beautiful, and everything is still, June and July and August is really bad, but after August, everything is in good moisture again." And it went through the last fall without any. We barely got sun during the winter. So it's a tough question. It's a tough decision. One of the things that you can do if you want to take the risk and not take that much of a risk is to reduce a little bit. If you're just overseeding, as you were saying here, I'm understanding that you don't have a 30% pasture, right? 20% pasture. You have something that's more like 50, 60, and you just want to get a thicker stand. You may want to do it, and you may don't want to do with your 20 pounds per acre. You may want to spread like 8 or 10 and take the risk and see how it goes. And you may need to come back with the half of the rate next year because you don't want to put all of the eggs in the same basket. But yes, October 1st is our usually recommendation. It's our official recommendation. It does not mean that you cannot plant up to October 15th or maybe later than this. We just cannot recommend this, and then you get a first frost in the third week of October, and you will be very mad at us, right? So when we say from August 15th to October 1st, we are saying that on average, based on the last 20, 25 years on weather average that we have, these are the window that you have the highest chance to be successful. You may be successful, later than this in a good year that it's been raining and does not go that cold before December. But based on average, that's what I need to tell you, unfortunately.
All right. Next one. I've been broadcasting and drilling ryegrass, but we haven't had any rain for weeks. Have I wasted my time or money? And will the seed go bad?
William, I don't know if you waste your money, man. I will hope that you get an inch of rain in the next few weeks. And as I just mentioned to last year, I really think we still have around 3 or 4 weeks that everything can be better than it is. If we are able to have an inch of rain, 2 inches of rain in the next few weeks, everything should be okay. Ryegrass is a kind of seeds that used to be in the ground for a while. They used to be there as a seed bank. So you may be surprised with whatever is going to happen if we get some rain, or even during the spring with after a snow and maybe February, March when we have some moisture. You may see some of these cool season plants coming back, but again, I don't have the crystal ball, unfortunately.
If we had that crystal ball, we'd be making millions. All right. You mentioned the NPK loss. If you hear a dog, I'm really sorry. You mentioned the NPK loss associated with selling cows and hay. If a cow-calf operation exclusively purchased hay off farm, would NPK remain in balance, increase, or decrease? And what about the year-to-year pH change in this scenario?
Okay. The numbers will be. I cannot tell you that the NP and K will remain in balance, because as a cow calf operation, you are selling calves every year, right? We are sending out of the farm, and even some of your cool cows or old cows, you're going to be replaced in. And every time we do this, we are also selling NP and K with those animals. So the rate of nutrient removal is lower in the cow-calf operation that only buy hay. And also, every time you are buying hay, you are bringing some NP and K to your farm as well, right? So the more you waste your hay, look at this. I'm not recommending you to do this, but I'm telling you that the lower is your efficiency when you are feeding hay, the better is to your soil, right? Because you are bringing nutrients that you're not allowing the cows to eat, and you are bringing it back to the soil. You'll find people that do it in purpose. I know people that unroll hay because they want to see nutrients in the ground. I think that is a very expensive way to fertilize pasture. I would not recommend this, but I understand we have people that do it. They like it. They love it. I'm good with this. I wouldn't do. I think that your NP and K will not be in balance forever. You need to at some point, and again, I don't think I mentioned that, but I would recommend that every 2 or 3 years, 4 years, even if you are in a situation that you're not putting up hay, I would take a soil sample every 3 years at least to make sure that you are in good shape. If I am put up hay in a hay field, making tons of hay every year, I will take soil sample every year, because that thing costs 15, 17 bucks, and that changed everything in your budget. So knowing what you have there is not going to be those 15 bucks that's going to hurt you. Buying the wrong nutrients, that's going to hurt you badly. So
You better know that. And I think the last one is about the year-to-year pH change. pH will change more if you are applying nitrogen. Nitrogen has the capability to acidify soils. So as the more you use urea, the more will be the change in soil pH. So if you're not applying nitrogen, your soil pH does not change much. But the more you use, the higher will be the change. So again, if you take soil samples every 2-3 years, you know what's going on and you'll be able to act in time.
Okay, our next one, which is best for an average treatment for a mid-level performance pasture? Triple 13, 15, or a much higher fertilizer?
The best ever treatment is what the soil test report tells you to do. Why are you going to buy a triple 13 or triple 15 or whatever if you already have the P and K you need in the soil? I have been working with soil test reports here that I already have all the P I have there, and I just need to buy nitrogen and potassium. So forget this thing of triple whatever. We need to spend $15 and know what you need, because you may be applying a lot of P that you already have been putting P triple 19 for 20 years, or may have already built enough phosphorus in the soil that you do not need to build it anymore, right? And I understand that this is a very old habits that we have it. I have been farmers that they apply triple something for 20 years because grandpa did it, because dad did it, and we are doing this. And yes, 30 years ago, we were at that level. We needed to do this. We didn't have soil test available. We didn't know much about soil fertility. Now we know that we can guide you. And I can tell you, I was in Kansas 3 years ago when a ton of urea was costing more than $1,000, and a ton of DAP and potash, we were paying more than 900, 950 for each ton of that thing. And in that year, based on soil test reports, I had several of my farmers there that they did not apply any phosphorus in that year. And I said, you do not need, go for. And corn, soybean, wheat, pastures, all of them, we were able to keep production. We were able to keep the yields. We were able to keep the yields out of these fields because they already had enough. But I cannot tell you this without seeing what you have in the soil, because you may be lacking in phosphorus and we still need to apply it there. So please consider to take soil samples and making a guided decision instead of just go with triple 13, triple 15.
All right. What is the turnaround for soil samples, and in this drought, does the result need to be modified?
I think we have been able to turn around soil samples in 10 days, 15 days. I would not expect much more than 2 weeks. That's what we target here. Although sometimes we receive 2,000 samples in the same week, we cannot do all of this, but no, we should be able to turn it around in 2 weeks. And yes, the drought will let me say this in a different way. Every single weather parameter will play with soil test. So what I like to recommend is pick a time of the year that is good for you. I have farmers that just take soil samples in the spring. I have some that just do it in the fall. I have some that like to do in the month of April. So you got to find a kind of few weeks of the year that works well for you, a month of the year that works well for you, and do always in that time frame. Because if you try to compare soil samples that you took in the spring of the one year against the fall of the other year, we will have some noise on this. It's hard to have them all compared, side by side. So I would recommend you to pick a time of the year that's good for you and stick with this.
Okay, do we need to indicate that we're doing renovation or maintenance for soil samples?
You need to define the crop. And with the crop, they'll give you those 2 lines I show there. The first one is for establishment. The second one is for maintenance. So it's going to pop up. And again, University of Tennessee has an extension office in every single county of this state. Regardless of where you are, you go Google UT extension office, you're going to find one. And in each of these offices, you'll find a agriculture and natural resource extension agent. They are all trained to help you on this. Most of the offices, they will have the soil probe that you can borrow from them, and they will help you they will guide you in how to take the soil samples. They will show you how the soil probe works, and they will also help you to fill out all the paperwork and send it to the lab. It's important to mention.
Perfect. I need to plant fescue in October when I have a seed drill. Can I apply lime in late fall when we have more rain?
Matt, you are here, man. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. My point is that fescue you drill in now in October, they will not have the benefit of the change in soil pH, right? The reason the lime after plant is not going to hurt the fescue, but the fescue is not going to get the benefit of the soil pH. So if you need to drill in and bring your lime whenever you can, right? But ideally, you would have applied that lime 3 months ago, and then you were drilling in now. But that's going to work for next year, right? Not for these anymore.
Awesome. And then can I plant fescue in October and then put cattle on pasture in the spring?
Yes, you can slightly graze it, although you just need to graze the tops. Don't go all over. You don't want to bring your tillers out of the ground. You don't want to see the cows removing your tillers. They're still weak and in the establishment phase. But if you are able to just stop graze it, remove that 2-3 inches in the top, quick and fast, and move to other thing, you can do it. It sometimes helps us to stimulate new tillers and also stimulate root growth. But don't graze it as established pasture. You just pass by and move to the next one. It needs to be quick and light, very light.
Okay. I have some established pasture that is fair. I have other land with 20-year-old plantation pines on good sow bottom land. I want to mostly clear cut and create new pasture. Any recommendations on how to proceed after tree clearing?
Okay, after tree clearing, I'm assuming that you are really clean everything, right? There is no more wood there. You can take soil samples already while you were cleaning, so you can make some time and have the soil test report. You go as you establish a new pasture. Apply lime. The good part is in a situation like this, I'm assuming that you are going to work the ground as well. So it's nice to work the ground when you work first, you apply lime, you work the second time, so you can incorporate the lime. If you're going to do it and apply, and if you need phosphorus in that areas as well, it's good to apply phosphorus and incorporate as well if you can. Just do not put lime with phosphorus, because lime will impair the use of phosphorus in the soil. If you want to apply lime, give a few weeks, and then you bring your phosphorus in, so you don't have them together and causing any kind of immobilization of the phosphorus. But you can treat it as a new area, and you should be good.
Okay. Is there any type of grass that does better in Middle Tennessee versus East Tennessee?
Not really. Not really. We don't have anything that goes, with that difference from East to Middle Tennessee. The more we go to the southern Tennessee, you may have more C4 plants, right? You may find more Bermudas. Another day I found Bahia grass in a farm in southern Tennessee, but not really. Tennessee is going to be fescue worsted grass land, I think, for another couple hundred of years.
At least. At least.
least.
You mentioned correcting soil chemistry first. Assuming pH and soil fertility have been addressed already, but a till or no-till renovation is required, what is your suggested pasture renovation timeline to reestablish fescue? Most importantly, when can it be placed back into grazing rotation?
Yeah, I think we discussed a little bit with
Okay.
Matt above, right?
Right.
if everything is already addressed, if you already have soil pH and fertility, it's all okay. I don't see the reason to till. Okay, if everything is already good, I would mow it down and non-till it to preserve the soil as it is. I don't want to burn organic matter. I don't want to mess up with my soil and give the weeds the chance to show up. I want to keep my weed seed bank quite there. I don't want to say then, yeah, sunlight, come and tell me what you can do, right? We don't want to challenge the pasture like this. So ideally the planting is now, we just discussed here, from August 25th to October 1st. That's the best window to plant fescue here in the state of Tennessee. And you'll be able to bring it back as a fast grazing in the spring, and you may be able to bring it full time back in the next fall, right? It's going to take some time. We are talking here about cool season plants. You don't want to push them too hard in the next spring. If you do it in this fall or in any fall, in the following spring, you don't want to push them hard. You can again graze in the top of the plant fast and quick, low stocking rate. Don't push a lot of cows in each of your pasture. Just cut the tops and move to the next one.
Okay. If I'm putting weed control in with my fertilizer, should I still plant clover? Sorry.
Yeah. Well,
Thanks.
yeah, we need to check what kind of weed control you were putting in your fertilizer, because some of them they can have residual in the soil, and then we do not recommend clover in the year next. You may need to hold a little bit and just come back in the spring of 2026 with clovers, right? I would encourage you to reach out to the rep you were working with to find out which kind of weed herbicide you were using, to make sure that it's not going to bother your clover in February.
Okay. What are your thoughts on rolling out hay versus using a hay ring?
I really like the ring. I really like all of the hay device. It does not need to be a ring. We have different hay feeders, right? I think the ring is good because you can move around. It's bad when you have a ring stuck there and you use it through the whole winter, so you mess up with everything around. But the numbers we have, Matt, tell us that every time you're using the ring, the efficiency is much higher than when you roll out hay. If you're just enrolling hay there, you should expect that you are losing at least 30%. We have some research results that tell us that up to 50%. So if you put it in the account, imagine that you need to have like 80 bales to go through the winter, and you decide to unroll all of them. You may need to have like 120, just because you were losing so much by unrolling there. Although, as I mentioned earlier here, you have a new how can I say that, a new line of thought now, that they think that is good for the soil health, to increase organic matter, to improve my soil. And I know people that do it, for example, in specific areas of the pasture that they know that they have like bare ground and they want seeds there, they want to increase that patch. I'm not against this, but I don't see the benefit of being unrolling hay all over my farm just because I want to increase all of the rest. I think we already have data on the research base that can show us that with good nitrogen application, with good soil fertility, with good management, with good rotational grazing, respecting stubble height, do not overgrazing, do not cutting your hay below 4 inches, do not grazing below 4 inches. All of these benefits of this healthy soil, they will show up. So I am 100% towards hay feed device.
Awesome. Would you recommend applying any nitrogen with your fall fertilizer?
If you want to stockpile fescue, yes, that's what we do. Most of the time, we use one of these NBPTs inhibitors, urease inhibitors. So you are not going to volatilize them much. If you just apply the regular urea, you may be losing half of this. just for volatilization, right? Which is the process where the urea goes from the solid to the gas and then goes straight to the atmosphere instead of go to the soil. We want to apply urea after a rain, so you make sure that you have moisture in the soil, or if you are seeing rain in the forecast, it's coming, it's there, you know that's arriving. So you go apply urea, you got that half inch of rain, we are in good shape in the fall. Otherwise, we will just be losing a lot for volatilization.
All right. How long before you can put cattle back on a fall seeded pasture? Oh, we talked about this just a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. And when can you put them in the
Okay.
spring? I wouldn't bring it back in the fall. It needs to be out of grazing for the fall, and it's going to be very slight in the spring. It's going to be full grazing the next fall.
Great. And then any suggestions for controlling that dang Johnson grass?
You know, Brian, we had a field day yesterday just discussing this, and I was so happy because I saw one of these wipers. The farmer had the producer there that he had a wipe, and he was wiping Johnson grass. He bought that thing. It works well. I was really happy with the results we saw yesterday. You can use things like Outrider, and you can use a spot spray with glyphosate. But you need to take care because glyphosate is going to kill everything, right? With the Johnson grass. But yes, we have herbicides like Outrider that you can use straight to Johnson grass. But if you can work as he did there, and he was very smart because he had a bunch of fall armorworm 3 or 4 weeks ago. I think we all had in Tennessee this year. And he realized that the Johnson grass was there pretty high and standing, and in this case, all of the other plants that he wants there were very short, because to wipe, you need to have at least 6 inches in between the desirable plant and the one you want to kill, right? Otherwise, you kill the ones you don't want. So he had it because the wormworms were grazing everything there but the Johnson grass, and he was able to drive that thing over and kill Johnson grass. I don't want to tell you to keep your Johnson grass. I just don't think that Johnson grass is that bad as we think. I would avoid it if you can, but I already found farmers in Tennessee that they have been grazing really well in Johnson grass. Just to mention it here, I think there will be. That's one thing we need to learn how to work with in Tennessee because we have a lot everywhere. But you're right. I would kill as well. Spot spray or wipe it if you can.
All right. I have one more question in the Q&A box, and then there's just a couple in the chat box, so we'll wrap up here soon. Are there any herbicides? This is a good question that are honeybee friendly.
Not that I am aware of. Not that I am aware of. I know the bees are kind of the things we have been trying to keep there, right? So if we can reduce the amount of herbicides we apply, that will be the best. I think that's a go. And when we are talking about sustainable strategies for farm livestock systems, we need to be aware of this. And yes, we need to reduce as much as we can to be able to get everything in good shape. I think it's going to be good for all of us, but I'm not aware of anyone specifically that says you can use this and you're not going to kill them. I never read it in an herbicide label.
All right. And then the last few in the chat box, I'll read off to you as well. Would mixing in a perennial ryegrass into an established pasture be beneficial, or should I just stick with the fescue?
You can. You find people that do it. I rather to have fescue more with orchard grass than with ryegrass. I think they compete too much, but you can do. You'll find pastures that they have both. I rather to enrich you with fescue and come back with clovers. I think they will not be competing that much against each other.
Okay. How do you calculate ag lime poundage versus pelletized lime?
We need to know what you have in the pelletized lime. Who else is selling these to you needs to provide the amount of RNV they have in each, and then we make the calculation based on the recommendation and the RNV for the egg lime and from the pelletized lime.
Okay. Fall is the preferred seeding time for fescue. However, with the rain, should we consider a spring seeding?
Uh, you can. The point is the risk is too high, right? Most of the spring planting, the plants will not be, the seedlings will not be ready for the summer. So it's going to be hot and dry, and they do not make through the summer, and you're going to lose the money again. So I will try to come up with a plan to stick wherever you have through the spring. I rather to recommend you to plant spring oats in February if we have moisture there, so you can make it through the spring. If we don't have moisture during the spring, you may want to plant like crabgrass or sorghum in May, and then you make it through the summer with a annual warm season plant, and then you come back with fescue in the next fall. See, if we cannot plant fescue now, it's not the end of the world, right? We all are planning to be here for the next few seasons. I'm still planning, so we still have oats in the spring. Even wheat, we can go later on the growing season now and into the winter planting wheat. We still have oats in the early spring, and then annual warm season plants in early summer. So we have all the three things that we still have all the three steps that we can go before getting to the next fall to help you guys to produce some forage to keep the animals there.
Okay. Does a soil test check for minor or micronutrients if they're needed, or minor elements?
If you ask for, they will run it as well. I think they charge a little bit more. It's not in the standard one, but you need to ask.
Okay, I've heard that compacted soil doesn't produce as well as it should. Are there any benefits to aerate your pastures?
You are right. Compacted soils may be an issue, but I don't have any data that supports that aerators will improve yield. I know that even here at the University of Tennessee, we have tested a lot in the 1990s, early 2000s, and in several ways, crossing, overlapping. I know that they did several studies here, and none of them showed yield response or quality response in the plants. Because when we do this, we also hurt some of the plants as well. So we kind of cut them back a little bit, and then they need some time to improve it. But no, I rather to work with management, soil fertility, bring clovers, rotational grazing, everything you can do to the top. You are also reflecting into the below ground area, right? If you are just keeping your biomass short to the ground, your roots will be short as well. So you want to have a better sward, you want to have more stubble height, you want to have a beautiful canopy, and you can see and imagine what's going on below. And the root system is the one that has the power to discompact the soil, to bring it back to life, to bring the soil healthy we're looking for. That's when we can combine legumes and grasses and good management. Those things will bring us to uh, the great environment that we want to have in forest systems.
Right. Two more questions and then we'll wrap up for the night. I know we've been going for a bit. How do you deal with thorn bushels in pastures? Tractor tires go flat and chemicals will have a negative impact on cattle.
Yes, yes. Well, those are the two big problems, right? You can try to do it manually, more like spot spray, where you don't need to go over. But if you have it all over the pasture, you may need the tractor anyway. But we have some of these herbicides that you can spot apply, so you don't need to drive over them. And you need to check the label for each of them. All of these labels, they will have grazing restriction, right? They may tell you that's 30 days or 40 days or 15 days, or some herbicides, they don't have grazing restriction, but I think all of these that we are talking here about, those thorn bushes, they may have it. So we got to stick with the label. There is nothing that we can do. The label is the final word on this.
All right. And then our last question, can you apply too much chicken litter and can it kill grass?
Well, everything too much is too much. I don't know how much too much you were calling here. When we are talking about chicken litter, the target will be around 2 tons per acre. I know we had some studies at UT that we apply up to 4, and we didn't have any big issue. No. So I would say that I wouldn't go much more than 3 or 4. 2 would be my target, but too much is always too much, right? If you want to apply like 10 tons, you may have too much that we can start to have any kind of trouble in terms of unbalancing in the soil. But I never went through a process that I need to work with somebody that had applied too much chicken litter. The more we spread, the better it will be. I will try to keep the target in 2 tons per acre.
All right. We had our fire question session here for Dr. Pedreira. I really appreciate all of the participation from everybody tonight. Seeing a flooded Q&A box and chat box always makes my heart happy. And we love to get those questions answered for you. So again, if anyone has any questions from tonight's webinar that you didn't get to answer or you think of in the future, please send those to me or your local extension agent, and we'll be sure to get those answered from Dr. Pedreira as well. We'd love to thank everyone for joining us tonight for the 5th session or webinar of the webinar series here this fall. If anybody has any questions as far as attendance or certification, please send those to me or Dr. Mason, and we'll get those covered. Covered in the meantime. Thank you again, Dr. Pedreira, for joining us. I will talk to you in the near future to get a copy of the slides for you, from you, to send out to some of our participants that have asked about slide, just copies of those for their own reference. So again, I'll wrap us up. Thanks and good night.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.